Javelin is one of the most feared builds in the game. It's also one of the oldest. The man-portable anti-tank guided missile has been in the meta since before the devs even shipped the Thermal Optics DLC, and its combination of a soft launch tube and a top attack warhead makes it an imposing threat to anything that dares roll onto the battlefield. But has that decades-old kit held up in the face of the immense power creep modern armor has seen? Let's take a closer look at the stats and abilities the Javelin runs, and ultimately decide where it falls on the tier list. And yeah, this one's been requested into the ground, so let's finally settle it. First, the stats. The Javelin's numbers are honestly stacked across the board, with nothing glaringly weak, except its logistics, footprint, and its price tag. Its firepower is obviously the headline. This build carries a tandem-shaped charge warhead that punches through reactive armor and then top attacks the thinnest plate on the entire vehicle, the turret roof. That's its ace move, a one-shot on a target that costs 100 times more than the missile itself. Big if there, but we'll come back to that. Its survivability is where things get spicy, because the launcher itself is soft. The operator is unarmored infantry, and the command launch unit is the expensive brain of the whole kit, so it can't take a hit. What saves it is fire and forget. The seeker locks before launch, so the moment the missile leaves the tube, the crew can displace, shoot and scoot. Its mobility is excellent for a system that kills tanks, since the whole loadout is man-portable at around 22 kilograms, run by a two-man team, no vehicle required. Its stealth is quietly one of its best perks. The soft launch design ejects the missile with a low signature charge before the main motor ignites, which means it can fire from inside a building or from defilade without the giant backblast that gives away most rocket builds. And its guidance tech is the stat that got the biggest glow up. Back in the early ATGM expansions, guidance was a wire-guided nightmare where the operator had to manually fly the missile the whole way, exposed the entire time. The Javelin's imaging infrared seeker power crept that entire strategy into obsolescence. You lock, you leave, and the missile flies itself the rest of the way while you are already reloading behind cover. So with all that said, the Javelin is a devastating build with a clean, straightforward strategy and a genuinely respectable service history. However, and here's the turn, the meta has spent 20 years building hard counters specifically to shut this thing down, and a good commander will have very little trouble playing around its strengths and punishing its weaknesses. So let's talk about those weaknesses. The straightforward nature of the Javelin's game plan is great for a conscript to learn fast. The core strategy is simple: get a lock, fire, top attack, delete a tank. The problem is what happens when the ideal conditions aren't there. This missile has a minimum arming range, roughly 65 meters. So at knife fight distance, the ace move simply doesn't connect, and a tank that closes the gap flips the matchup entirely. Worse still, the missile is not a disjointed hitbox. It can be intercepted mid-flight, just like any other projectile, and against a modern target, that is the optimal counter. An active protection system reads the incoming missile and fires a counter munition to swat it out of the air before it ever reaches the roof. The warhead can also be baited by reactive armor tiles and degraded by improvised overhead coke cages that force an early detonation. And then there's the price. Each shot is brutally expensive, so every missile you burn on a miss or an intercept is a small fortune gone. According to CNBC's 2022 reporting, a single Javelin round runs about $176,000. Ferrari money for one pull of the trigger. That makes it a glass cannon in the most literal economic sense. It also has almost no answer to being saturated. One launcher reloads slowly, and against a swarm of cheap threats, it simply can't keep up. The launch signature gets spotted, and counter battery fire or a loitering drone punishes the position before the crew can move. Now let's talk matchups, starting with the bad, of which there are more every year. The Javelin's worst matchups are builds that spec directly into intercepting it. A main battle tank, running an active protection system like Israel's Trophy is a borderline unwinnable fight. Trophy is designed to detect and defeat incoming guided missiles, and it turns a guaranteed kill into a coin flip. Tanks stacked with explosive reactive armor and welded cope cages are the round shell build. Awkward to one shot, engineered specifically to eat the warhead's energy before it reaches anything vital. Then there are the drone swarms, the new ant colony of the battlefield. A team of $500 FPV drones can do the Javelin's entire job for a fraction of the cost, and the Javelin has no outs against being outnumbered and out-economied like that. Attack helicopters and reconnaissance drones are the birds of this meta. High accuracy, hunting the launch signature, and fast enough that the crew gets almost no window to relocate, though one good top attack shot is still enough to erase a chopper if it wanders too close. Light armor and infantry fighting vehicles are a genuine toss-up. The Javelin absolutely overkills them, but they carry sensors and autocannons that can spot the launch and suppress the position before the missile even arms, so those fights often favour the cheaper vehicle. For the good matchups, the Javelin is still absolutely lethal against the thing it was born to hunt, a legacy main battle tank with no overhead protection. Against a base model T-72 or T-80 with its ammunition stored in the turret and nothing guarding the roof, the top attack profile is a nightmare. One hit and the turret goes to the moon. This is where the reputation was forged. Reporting by defense analyst David Hambling in Forbes credited anti-tank guided missiles like the Javelin with a meaningful share of the thousands of Russian armoured vehicles knocked out in the opening phase of the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. It's also devastating against soft targets, bunkers, buildings, and dug-in positions, where it can switch to a direct attack profile, and there is simply nothing in that structure that can shoot back at the operator in time. When the matchup is one-sided, this build is one of the most cost-effective killers ever fielded, and that is exactly why it earned its legend in the first place. There are a few upgrades I think could drag the Javelin back toward the top of the list. A more versatile targeting option would be a solid start, pairing it with a recon drone for over-the-hill queuing so the crew never has to expose themselves to get a lock. A cheaper warhead variant would fix the cost efficiency problem that the swarm builds are currently exploiting. Extending the effective range would help too. Per CIS's missile threat profile, the Javelin's top attack reach sits around 2.5 kilometers, stretching past 4 for the newer blocks, and every extra kilometer buys the crew more standoff and more survivability. But the real min-max play is leaning all the way into the recon strike loop. Let a swarm of cheap drones be the ant-lion trap that finds and fixes the target, and let the Javelin be the finisher that lands the one shot that actually matters, from total cover. As it stands though, I have to be honest, the Javelin has been power crept, and hard. Its glory days as the uncontested S-tier one-shot king are behind it. The Lockfire top attack death combo is still one of the most satisfying kill chains in the game, but at the highest level of play, the strategy gets intercepted, outrange and out-economy too easily to sit at the very top. I'm placing it firmly in A tier. Elite. Still terrifying, absolutely a pick you respect, but no longer the god the internet crowned it. Because every conflict is a balance patch, and this one nerfed the Javelin the moment active protection and cheap drones both hit the meta at once. If you want to see exactly how active protection systems hard counter this thing, that teardown is loading next. But before you go, this whole channel runs on one question: was it actually good? So drop your tier in the comments and hit subscribe, because the next balance patch is already deploying. The Javelin didn't fall because it got worse. It fell because a $500 drone learned to do its job. And the most expensive lesson in modern war is that being overpowered was only ever a temporary buff.